What's going on, guys? Back with another podcast. We got Eric on the line and my
What's
friend,
happening? Thanks for having me.
not a problem. We got my man Dave on the line. What's going on, Dave?
Yo, what's going on, Ryan? What's going on, Eric?
Nothing
Not much,
much.
not much.
All right, guys, and we got a lot of topics to discuss today. So, a lot of them are revolving around the Brooklyn Nets and the new addition with James Harden. So, we're going to run through a couple topics here. So, first topic we got on the list here is Brooklyn Nets GM Sean Marks says Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are committed to gelling with James Harden. So,
Uh,
you
we'll
know,
see how that goes.
we'll see how that goes. Second topic we got on the list today
Oh,
is
wait, so exactly. I knew Irving was gonna want to come back
well,
and
that's a
play
good.
with Harden.
Yeah, I mean that's another topic. So we got Irving looking forward to being back. Missed the last 5 games. Third topic is Pacers versus Suns on Saturday was postponed. Ninth game since Sunday, 10th overall. So a lot of postponements due to the coronavirus. Another topic we're going to touch base on is Zion is cleared to play after inconclusive tests led to him missing Wednesday's game against the Clippers. And then we're going to finish it up with Eric Gordon, old teammate of James Harden, now says trade allows Houston Rockets to move forward with a new direction. Same with the Pacers. So we're going to swing back up to the comments, Brooklyn Nets GM Sean Marks made about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are committed, supposedly, to gelling with James Harden. What do you guys think about that topic? We'll start with you, Eric.
Well, I think honestly, Sean Marks is, from all indications, I think he has had little, like, I mean, I'm sure he's had some discussion with Kyrie Irving, but I think it's been very minimal. And I think this is just the PR department really like speaking for him in a sense. Um, who knows when Kyrie Irving's going to come back? I mean, I think no doubt when he does come back that they're going to try to make it work. But I honestly, because he's not given any concrete answers, I don't really think he has much of a clue what's going on. And I think this has just been a huge mess started by Kyrie Irving.
That's totally what I agree. And who's to say he is going to come back anytime soon? I know some reports are indicating he's possibly coming back soon, and one would think that the arrival of superstar James Harden would be a little bit more reason to come back. But I mean, the reason he was out in the first place had nothing to do with the team's performance. So. That's another, indication that, he might not come back even right now. Dave, what do you think about, Sean Marks and what he said that he's committed with Irving and Durant to work with James Harden?
Who wouldn't be committed if you were the GM and you had these three players on the same team? Obviously, he's going to be committed to having these players work together and want Kyrie back because they're going to be winning games, winning championships. But I think Irving will be back with Harden, this new addition on that team. He's got to want to come back. And the whole reason had nothing to do with injury or anything. But now I'm hearing that he actually can't come back even if he wanted to because of COVID protocols, because he was not wearing a mask at a family event and was photographed not
Yes.
socially distancing.
Yeah, so that's going to be another delay in his comeback, probably at least a week, because I believe you actually have to quarantine for 7 days if that's the case. So, at the bare minimum, it's going to be about a week. I think it'll be longer personally because, like I said, who's to say he's going to come back? He says he's pretty much will give everything up for social injustice. What that tells me is he has no indication of coming back anytime soon. That his biggest priority right now is definitely not basketball, based on those comments. And I don't know. I mean, Eric, how long do you think he's going to be out for?
Well, like you guys both mentioned, um, the violation of the COVID protocols could mean a lengthy absence. So, I mean, I feel like it's a minimum a week right now. And the NBA season is already shortened. I know it's not a huge difference, but I mean, when you think about it, 72 games compared to 82 games, um, there's not as much room for error when you're getting off to a slow start as a team. So the more games he misses, I mean, they might do well, they might win those games, but if they don't and he's out for an extended period of time because he delays coming back, and then the COVID thing on top of it, they could potentially not end up with a favorable seeding when it comes playoff time.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know me and Dave touched base, in recent podcasts about Irving and his potentially when he's going to come back, and it makes you wonder, what is Steve Nash, new coach of the Brooklyn Nets, thinking about this, and what is GM Sean Marks really thinking? Because it comes to a point where if Irving does not come back, I mean, they have to say something. I mean, Dave, I know you mentioned that. I mean, they have no choice almost but to, allow him to be out, right?
Yeah, well, you're going to get this when you have three of the biggest egos from three of the biggest superstars in the NBA in the same team, and you got a player like Kyrie. This isn't the first time a situation like this has, you know, came out. It happened in Boston, but I also hear that Kyrie Irving is under investigation by the NBA for being out for no reason, like you said.
So yeah, so what do you think? What can the Brooklyn Nets actually do about this? Because I mean, I've heard some reports where they could actually go as far as voiding his entire contract if he continues to stay out with no, valid reason. And
No way. Are they going to do this? No, they're not going to do that.
why do you
They
think that?
can because it was a package deal. It wasn't just Kevin Durant. It was Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Just because they can doesn't mean they will. They're not going to get rid of Kyrie Irving.
It's almost like they're stuck with him, is what it seems like. Because technically, like you said, they could void his contract if he continues to be out. But it is kind of a package deal because that's the reason they did join in Brooklyn, was because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving decided to play together. And it's almost like they're like stuck. The Brooklyn Nets. I mean, what can you say to Irving? Could you be like, if you don't come back within 2 weeks, there will be consequences. Like, Eric, what do you think they can actually do?
Well, I mean, like Dave said, I think it's a real. Kyrie's put the team in a really tough position because, yes, I mean, technically you could, I'm sure, find a way to void his contract, but that's something they're definitely not going to do because of the whole package deal with Durant. Like those two wanted to play together, and I was reading a little bit further just now, and again, like I said before, like I don't know, like how much stock to put into what Sean Marks has been saying with all this, but he was actually saying like, oh, he consulted both of them on the Harden trade because he wanted to get their like commitment and see what their conviction was behind it. And apparently they both signed off on it. So apparently Kyrie was included in on this Harden move. So I think that unless something even more drastic happens and like Irving just like decides to never come back at all, then I don't think they're gonna mess around with this contract. And I mean, like we were talking about earlier, off the mic, if anyone else in a normal situation and a normal job didn't show up to their place of work and gave no notice and just did whatever they wanted for a week, they wouldn't be employed any longer. So it's a really unique situation, but the NBA, when you have that job, you're in a unique position. So some of those same rules don't always apply.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that is a good point that you made. And that's why I think a lot of people are frustrated with Kyrie Irving because, they're looking at the context of, at my job, if I were to do this, I definitely wouldn't have a job. And it's like he has this luxury because he is Kyrie Irving. And he also knows he's Kyrie Irving because the team, they have control over him. But realistically, I mean, they're going to go as far as those superstars take them. And, it's one of those situations where it's almost like, what can you say to him? Because, these guys technically all next year can leave. They're all going to be free agents, I believe. I think Harden's the
Mm-hmm.
only one. I don't even know if he's under contract for next year, but technically they could all opt out next season. So I think that's another thing that they're actually trying to be careful of what they do and what they say. Because I think if this was like a long-term thing, they would maybe think about moving him.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to bring up something else real quick before you move on or go to something else. Is I
Sure.
read something interesting too, where apparently every NBA champion since the 2004 Pistons has ranked 11th or better in defensive efficiency, and right now, and this is before the trade to get James Harden, the Nets defense currently ranks 13th. And again, that was before they exported their best rim protector, Jared Allen, and imported James Harden. So
Wow.
there's an expectation that the defensive efficiency is going to dip a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at that stat, that's 16 years that no NBA champion has ranked worse than 11th. I don't know. I mean, there's every streak comes to an end, but I don't think that's a good sign for a team that has championship aspirations because you got a lot of offensive firepower, but you also lost some depth and you lost some defense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, I can really only compare this team to, recently the Golden State Warriors that had Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and a variety of bench players who are known for their defense. That's what this team's
Yeah.
lacking now. They don't have those defensive contributors on the bench anymore. Jared Allen was by far their best defensive player. DeAndre Jordan now is going to have to step up. And I know me and Dave touched on it. He's pretty much going to be asked to be their starting center, their rim protector, and their leading rebounder because, Harden's not going to defend and Irving's not going to defend. But I mean, realistically, that's the only thing that I can compare it to really is that Warriors team because based on, prior events, they're the only one that's that similar, and, as far as scoring and
Yeah.
granted though,
And the thing was, too, Durant was a very good defender on those Warriors teams, but I don't see him being quite the same defender now because I don't think he's going to be exuding as much energy on the defensive end coming off of this injury. So they also, that's just what I would assume that he's not going to exert as much energy on that end while he's still rehabbing to an extent from this energy. Really
yeah,
good on offense, but I would think that he wants to be a little careful still.
yeah, that makes sense. What do you think about that, Dave? Do you think that their defense will be a problem in the latter of the season?
I mean, when you have these guys on the same team, there's going to be a lot of points being scored. Yes, they might not have the depth that they had before prior to the trade, but you just got an all-star player that's going to put up top points. I mean, how many points would he get on his own during a regular game? He's going to be bringing that over to this team with Irving and Durant. I don't see points being a problem because there's going to be a lot being scored. And if they need some depth players, I'm sure they're going to have no problem signing players for cheap because this is going to be similar to the dynasty where you had the Golden State Warriors and everyone wanted to sign there and they would take minimum deals like DeMarcus Cousins just so they could win championships or try to. And I don't see players and depth being a problem when you have three of the best players in the NBA on the same team.
Yeah, that is true actually that you put that because a lot of those superstar teams, even the Miami Heat teams, I mean, the bench players that they actually acquired like midway through the season and the trade deadline this year is going to be hot. But the thing is, they traded a lot away most of their assets. Most of their picks are gone. I mean, I guess they could trade a couple of their bench players. They still got Jeff Green, Joe Harris is a good player, DeAndre Jordan. But other than that, I mean, they only got a few names that they can move. I mean, that is true. Hopefully, they can get some guys for like a veteran minimum. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that, Eric? Do you think they'll be able to get those free agents for cheap?
I think it's going to be a little more difficult than it was for teams like Golden State and Miami because I think uh, most players really enjoyed playing with LeBron um, because of the type of player he is, and I think a lot of veteran players, enjoyed playing for Golden State because it's a little different when you're playing with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, who are more like team-oriented players than two guys who have just like absolutely alienated every other member on their last two teams. Like Harden called out his entire Houston Rockets team to force a trade out, and we all know the history with Kyrie and Cleveland and Boston alienating his teammates. So I think players. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think players would be less willing to, want to sacrifice money to play with those two guys, Harden and Irving, than they would for a team that has LeBron or a Steph Curry and Clay and Draymond. And I mean, the thing too, DeAndre Jordan is going to be expected to play a lot more minutes now, and this guy's like a shell of what he used to be. He's averaging like 4 and 7 for the season. Um, I don't know. I hope they do well because it's an exciting trio, and I think they'll put up a lot of points. But I don't know. It remains to be seen how it all is going to work out and what type of depth they can acquire.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with that, it's just the NBA now is such it's turned into such super teams, and I know I've previously discussed this on some of the other podcasts we've done, but I mean it seems like that's what it is. Every 3 years now, one of these super teams develop, and it's like these small market franchises and these guys that can't get these free agents or players that want to play in a LA or a Miami, it seems like they have no shot. And realistically, I think the NBA has to do something. I don't know what they can do about these super teams and stopping them from happening, but I mean, the NBA, it seems they can step in on some of these trades. I mean, they already know they have Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and they allow these trades that go through to these super teams with no problem. But years ago they stopped a Chris Paul trade to the Lakers, which I think was a fraction of how good this team is. And they
Yeah,
allow
I agree.
everything to go through now, and it's almost like the super teams are just there's like it's probably going to be the Lakers and the Nets. I mean, realistically, I think anyone that even watches basketball on a basic level will pretty much admit that. I mean, what do you think, guys, about the
Obviously,
super teams? What do you think, Dave, about the super teams?
I like it. I know you don't. I say keep it. Don't change a thing. But yes, other teams are going to be bad, but it forces other teams to get better, like the Lakers. And I just don't see a problem with seeing some of the best players in the league on the same team teaming up because some of the best television of sports competition was the Golden State Warriors dominating the NBA. I mean, that was great to watch.
What do you think about that, Eric? Do you think that's got problem for the NBA now? Is these super teams?
I think to an extent it is. I think the problem most people have with super teams um, are the ones built through like free agent signings, as opposed to the ones like built through the draft. So I think a lot of like old school NBA fans really appreciate teams that build their franchise through draft picks or even trades. But I think it rubs some people the wrong way when like two or three guys sign with the same team and they're all stars. Yeah, a lot of people think it's exciting, but like I said, a lot of the old school people um, like a more even keeled level of competition and buy into the whole like, oh, if you can't beat them, then why would you join them, sort of thing. Um, so I think that it's gotten a little bit worse over the years, but um, I don't think it's like a huge problem yet. Um, and I think it's going to start to change as we see teams aren't going to be able to throw as many big contracts around as they have been in previous years because of like the collective bargaining agreement is going to be a lot lower next time around because of how much money the NBA has lost in the last couple of years now, and ratings are down. So I don't know. The super teams might be harder to build in the next few years.
Yeah, that's true. And you can imagine all the money they're losing because of COVID and, the fans not being there. That's just a quick topic I want to quickly discuss now. I know, like I said, it's one of those things where only, I think, three teams right now in the NBA have fans. The Orlando Magic being one of them, the Houston Rockets, and the Toronto Raptors in Canada. How do you guys feel about that? Because I think that, for three out of the, 30 teams in the NBA to have fans, it's like, well, I mean, realistically, I mean, if you go to a Target or you go to a Best Buy or you go to a Home Depot, and you're standing right next to somebody in line, helping customers or you're shopping at a grocery store, why would it be any easier to get the coronavirus, at an NBA game where you're better socially distanced, you're in a big arena, you have less people on top of you? I don't understand why that's still not allowed to have at least 25% capacity fans. What do you guys think about that?
I totally agree. It should be 50% capacity at least by now. It's completely ridiculous, and stuff's got to change because, like you said, 3 teams are allowing fans, you said right now?
Yeah, three.
That is ridiculous. 30 teams in the NBA,
Right.
and you're only going to allow 3 teams to have fans. Like, how is not at least 15 teams, at least by now, like, allowing 50% capacity? All of them should be allowing 50% capacity, but that's just shocking by now. Like you said, you can go to the store, you go grab groceries, and be distant. In a game, you can just separate by every so often. At 50% capacity, there's going to be a lot of space in between seats for the next person to be over, uh, to separate people. And I think there's no reason why it shouldn't be allowed, and I don't know why it hasn't by now. I totally agree.
What do you think about that, Eric?
Yeah, I think 50% should be allowed, and I think that it's possible we might see it closer to the end of the season, um, as the vaccine maybe gets more widely distributed. So I wouldn't rule out more teams having fans in their arenas by the end of the season. But if not, I think it'll be guaranteed by next season.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's kind of a good transition piece where we can go into our next topic. So Pacers versus Suns on Saturday was postponed coming up, and that's the ninth game since this Sunday, 10th overall. So the NBA is finally running into, their coronavirus problems, and the NFL has dealt with it, the MLB has dealt with it. I'm assuming the NHL is also going to deal with it. They started yesterday. Do you guys think this is going to be a concern going forward? Because, this is already so many games that are postponed. And the thing is with basketball, it's not like football where they play once a week and you can move the games around a little bit easier. They play every, 2 days in basketball. So I think that's going to be an issue because unless they somehow come up with new protocols, and I know the NBA just release certain things like you can have any more guests in your hotel rooms. When you're on the bench, you need to be in the breathable area, which is a separate area behind the basket now, where each of the seats are at least 12 feet apart. That's the only time on the bench that you can have no mask on too. So, they've changed. They kind of get a little bit more stricter on the policies. But do you guys still see a full season happening?
Yes,
What about you,
I
Eric?
definitely, I definitely do.
Eric?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that I think the full season is still going to happen. Um, I've heard some people throw out the notion of another bubble again, but I think that's too unrealistic at this point, and I don't think the players would go for it. I think there will be a full season. It's just going to be much like the ending to last season, where it's much different than anything we've seen before in sports. Like games getting postponed, they're going to have to be made
Like
up
the
eventually.
NFL, it's gonna be
Yeah,
similar to the NFL.
but it'll eventually get done. Um, it's just I think some of the players probably should show a little more discipline in going out and things like that because um, I know George Hill. I don't know if you guys heard the comments he made
Yeah.
recently where he's like, "Oh, I'm a grown man. I can do what I want." And like, granted, like technically you can, but I think that's kind of a really narrow-minded point of view because it isn't just about him. Uh, there's other people that are involved in like NBA teams and organizations that uh, are not currently working right now or have been furloughed. Um, and also the arena workers, for instance, that aren't working that are typically like ushers and the people, the vendors, the food vendors. And there's a lot of people involved in the NBA that aren't just the players. that aren't currently technically working right now. So the more this keeps happening, the more it prolongs getting back to normalcy and getting some jobs back for some of those people.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem because George Hill for the last couple seasons has had like these obscure comments, and they need to realize the only way their season is actually going to be played and they're going to get paid is if they complete these games. And if you go in with that mindset where, oh, I can do what I want, I'm a grown man. But if everybody thought like that, then there would be no way they would finish the games because everybody would be getting sick. Teams have older staff members, they have coaches, they have owners, things that they're around still on a daily basis. Those people are at more advanced risk. And the problem is, there's already been 9 games postponed due to this. And like I said, I don't know when they're going to make these games up because they're going to have to play almost every day at some point because I think the Celtics already have postponed 3 games this week alone. And eventually those games are going to have to be played. And what's going to happen is just like, the MLB did, the NBA is not going to do double headers, but they're going to have to be playing every single day. And I think the players are in for a rude awakening because there's no way they can do it besides that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And um, especially how, players these days um, are a lot more, I guess the term I could really think of as coddled compared to players in the past. And, they complain a lot about the back to backs and things like that. So I think all this stuff is happening right now, and games are getting postponed, and they're complaining that they can't do what they want. And then when it comes time to make up the games, they're going to start complaining again. They're going to be like, oh, now we have all these back to backs and things like that. So, I mean, there's just like a disconnect between what the NBA league office wants in terms of their rules and regulations and what like most of these players want. And yeah, it's causing problems.
Yeah, so we can kind of finish off on that segment there.
Yeah, it's just disregard for player safety when you think about it like he does, and just not caring, and like Kyrie Irving photographed without a mask at a family event. He could care less, and
Right.
he's putting other people at risk.
Yep. So ex teammate of James Harden, Eric Gordon says the trade now of Harden to the Brooklyn Nets has finally allowed the Houston Rockets to move forward. What do you guys think about those comments? I mean, for a teammate of Harden, I think he was with them for at least 3 years, maybe even longer. Those are some big words. It kind of seems like Harden over the last few years, plenty of reports, he almost was like holding that franchise hostage. It's like he got everything he wanted when he was there, James Harden. He got Chris Paul. He didn't like him. He got Russell Westbrook. He didn't like him. After 1 year, traded him. They did everything to please James Harden in Houston. And just like DeMarcus Cousins said yesterday, the disrespect started way before the comments he made about we're just not good enough. And I think that's a huge problem. And I'm surprised so many teams still wanted to trade for him because at this point, I mean, Harden and Irving have been a problem. And it's a known thing where now these guys are going to be on the same team together, 3 of them. Durant was a problem at some point. It's like I don't know how, first coach Steve Nash is going to have to deal with all these personalities. I almost feel bad for him. I love Steve Nash, and it's almost like, dang, this guy really, like, what did he get himself into? I mean, if your ex-teammates are saying, now we can finally move forward, that is like, that goes to show how bad, Harden was holding that team at gunpoint almost. Like, they couldn't do anything without his approval. Everything, I even heard even things as practices James Harden was to pick times for. He would go out, he would literally tell Coach Mike D'Antoni at the time what time to have practices that would fit his schedule best. I mean, that is ridiculous. What do you guys think about those comments?
I think it's a true statement for sure because when you have a guy like James Harden coming out and complaining, and you're given all these top name players, like you said, Chris Paul, he's had so many big names in the past, including DeMarcus Cousins right now, and he's had
Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook, just great players. He's never been able to do it, and the pressure's on him, but to win. And but he's been given good players, but he wants an easy. To Kevin Durant, how he joined the Warriors. He wants to join the team so he can guarantee championships because right now all the pressure is on him to do it by himself. But it's like Kyrie Irving. He tried to do it by himself, leaving LeBron James. He went to the Celtics and he couldn't do it. All the pressure was on him to win it with the Celtics. So all these three players are basically coming together to build a team that can win because they can't do it on their own by themselves.
Absolutely. What do you think about that, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said about him holding that franchise hostage was very accurate, and it was really just like disturbing to read and hear about because yeah, he's a transcendent talent. Like he is a generational type of talent, but like you said, he was asking for all these guys, and it started with Dwight Howard. He's like, "Oh, I wanted Dwight Howard," and they brought Dwight Howard over to the Rockets, and it didn't work out with him. Didn't work out with Chris Paul, Westbrook, and if you think about Harden's last 5 elimination games in the playoffs, he's 1-4, and there's been a couple in particular where he looked like he didn't show up ready to play at all. Like I remember that one against San Antonio, like a few years back, where the team was absolutely dismantled, and Harden was just like going through the motions out there. And as good of a player as this guy is, in the NBA and in pretty much all professional sports, your greatness
Even
is
at
often
Carmelo Anthony.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, Carmelo Anthony. Like your greatness and your legacy is very much predicated on how much you were able to win, and he hasn't done any of that yet. So it just, like I said, I just thought it was incredibly disturbing that he was making all these demands, and he was putting up great numbers, but at the end of the day, I mean, they didn't even make it to an NBA Finals. So
I I totally agree, and it's just incredible that he bashed his entire team and forced his way out. Like you're gonna just disrespect everyone on that team that you've uh, played with, and this is the franchise you've been with. And like you said, they catered to him. This was his team. This was James
yeah,
Harden's team, and just he said, "This is a team we can't win with. Everyone basically sucks." When you say you can't win with this team, and everyone signed there, like DeMarcus Cousins signed there out of free agency to try and win. And when you disrespect free agents like that are signing there to try and help you win, and then he's just joining a super team, it's very disrespectful because now it puts those other players in a difficult position because now he probably doesn't. He could have went somewhere else, most likely a player like DeMarcus Cousins, but he is enjoying playing with John Wall. So I just I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I almost feel bad for his teammates, John Wall, Boogie Cousins, Christian Wood, who are actually good players, and I
They
actually
don't
thought
want the drama. Like they don't want all this drama that
right, and
James
that's what
Harden is
Demarcus Cousins
causing.
said yesterday,
Yeah,
and I don't understand because the Western Conference, it's not like the Lakers are that much better than everyone else. I thought a team with James Harden, DeMarcus Cousins, Christian Wood, Eric Gordon, John Wall, like that's a pretty good team. And for you to say these guys all suck, John Wall has been like a 6-time All-Star. Cousins is finally coming back. He's actually playing pretty well. Christian Wood looks like a superstar. He's averaging like 25 and 10 this year in his first season there. I mean, these guys are good players, and it's not enough. It's never been enough for James Harden. And I almost would love, not almost, I would love to see them fail in Brooklyn. And people thought, people hated the Warriors teams before. They don't know anything yet. This team is going to be universally hated everywhere. I mean, I don't know anyone besides, I don't think anyone wants them to win. What do you? I mean, is this team not going to be the most hated team like around?
Obviously, it is going to be the most hated team in the NBA because, like we said, these three players just forced themselves out of every other place they were at. And it was Irving who forced himself out of the Celtics. They wanted to keep him. He promised and committed that he was going to stay and re-sign with Boston. He ended up going back on his own word and leaving. And James Harden turning his back on his franchise and teammates and bashing them, throwing them under the bus, saying he can't win with them, implying that they all suck. Had a top level free agent and DeMarcus Cousins signed there because he was trying to commit to winning and helping form a decent team with James Harden. And you know, I just don't know what's going on with this.
Yeah, Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it was really just embarrassing that he made those comments. Even if that's something you like legitimately think as a player, that's something you should never be saying to the media at all because it's just so disrespectful. Like these guys are NBA players, and like you said, some of them are actually very good NBA players as well. And it was the level of disrespect was just like unseen. And to circle back to like, will this be the most hated team in the NBA? Yeah, I definitely think so because of just like the way these two guys have like conducted themselves in like recent times. It's just I think it's left a bad taste in like almost every NBA fan's mouth, and it's funny because um, we're not even we're talking about Kevin Durant now like he's like an angel.
Right,
And
isn't it?
remember, like
Yeah,
a few years
exactly.
back,
Exactly.
people like went off on him for the burner accounts and signing with the
And joining
Warriors, and
us,
that's like
yeah.
yeah, that's like forgotten now with these two
He's
guys.
the
That's how
savior.
crazy
Isn't
it
that
is.
unbelievable how Kevin Durant is now looked at as, the leader of the pack? I mean, we've seen it for so many years, people destroying Kevin Durant over what he did and, like you just mentioned, his burner accounts, defending himself on fake profiles. It's just like if there's two guys that are worse than that on your team, then that is a problem. Like it's almost one of those situations where, who knows if they're going to mesh, I'm assuming they are. They're all great players, but there is only one ball, and Harden and Irving do a lot of dribbling. So we'll see,
But
I
yeah,
guess.
that's what I was saying. So even Kevin Durant forced himself out of where he was at because when he was on the Warriors, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they wanted to make it work. They wanted him to stay and re-sign rather than opt out, and he chose to leave because uh, I don't know, like
He wanted
why
Irving. You wanted Irving.
he wanted Irving instead, but like you're on a team that was a dynasty
Right.
and you just force yourself out because he chose to leave. They wanted to make it work and he just couldn't make it work. I don't know the reason behind it because it could have been because all the pressure from the fans saying, "Oh, the only reason why you could win is because you joined this team." But now you're creating your own super team, so you're not winning on your own. You're winning with
Right, and that's what I
Irving
don't
and Harden.
understand.
So it's
That's
you should have just
true.
stayed with the Warriors. So stupid. Like
I don't know anyone that would
either
Yeah,
want
way,
to
you're
leave
gonna
I
be
that
agree.
team.
hated for doing it.
Why would anyone want to leave that Warriors team? Because they were so established already, and now that is true. He wanted to win by himself virtually, but now it's not by himself. Even with Irving, it wasn't by himself. But now with James Harden, I mean, even if they win this year, it's going to have an asterisk. I mean, these are all great players, all Hall of Famers. They're going to be most likely.
DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are this team is stacked. I mean, people are forgetting Joe Harris. They're paying Joe Harris $84 million over 3 seasons. He's a sniper. He averages 17 points. He's a great
I
three-point shooter. He's almost like a Klay Thompson Jr. If he averaged 5 more points, he's a pretty decent defender. He would be similar to a Klay Thompson. So people forget they have him too in the starting lineup. They have Jeff Green. They don't even need a center with this team. They could play small ball. Mike D'Antoni's there. Harden loved D'Antoni. Allowed him to do whatever he wanted. D'Antoni's an assistant now on the Nets. They're going to be literally
It's true.
playing small ball the whole time. They don't even need Jordan can stand in the paint, block shots, get rebounds. That's all they need him for. They don't need him to
Oh,
score.
he'll be getting rebounds all day. He's a beast. He's a monster playing center, and he'll be just passing him back. And Irving will be shooting threes all day. Harden, Durant, it'll be sick.
This team is going to be like a
This team
light show from
has
downtown.
has so much potential. I hope Irving comes back soon, and I expect him to. Hopefully.
I'm curious. Like this team has to be like way into the luxury tax with all these
I know. I was wondering the same
contracts.
thing. I don't know how they can afford. It's crazy because there's been teams that have to get rid of superstars, and they're not even making max contracts like this team is. Like, how are they affording 3 max contracts? And Joe Harris, who's making $84 million over 3 years, I believe. That's a lot of money. I mean, I don't know how this team can even afford these guys. It's like none of the other players are making minimums. I mean, I don't know if any of the bench players. I mean, maybe Jeff Green's making minimum, and the bench is pretty much all rookies and third-year players. I don't know how this team can afford these guys because if you look
Yeah,
at
it's crazy.
what's weird about it is the Miami Heat. When Giannis was first discussing where to go, he ended up re-signing with, the team. Oh my God, he ended up re-signing with the Bucks. They were saying, I don't know where the Heat's going to find this money. And they don't even have, I think the only max guys they have right now is what? Adebayo just signed a max, maybe? And then Jimmy Butler maybe has a max, but they could have afforded a third guy. And they said they weren't going to be able to sign Harrow if they did that. I don't know how this team can sign Joe
Right.
Harris and, now
They're
James
gonna go
Harden.
way into the luxury tax. Yeah, they're gonna. It's gonna be a pretty hefty um, payment they're gonna have to dish out. I'm assuming.
What's even
'Cause these
crazier,
guys have massive contracts. Those three.
yeah,
And like you said, Harris and whatever DeAndre Jordan's getting paid. I'm sure it's not that cheap.
Well, the Lakers, they could have afforded Kawhi Leonard, LeBron
Yeah.
James, and Anthony Davis. So it's
I know they could
similar.
have technically afforded. I don't get how these teams. It's weird. They must be having to pay into the luxury tax. It's the only way. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on. We have one more segment going on. We have this date in the NBA. Eric, do you have those details on that?
I do actually, and this is something I always find very interesting. So I'm gonna go in chronological order. Just kind of go over some kind of standout performances over the years on this date, January 14th. So the first one that I came across was January 14th, 1950. George Mikan of the Minneapolis Lakers scored 51 points in a loss in an 83-77 loss to the Rochester Royals.
Oh my god!
So yeah, he went 20 of 36 from the field and 11 of 12 from the free throw line for 51 points. Yet his team still lost.
That's impressive.
But
51 out of
that's-
77.
Damn.
Yeah, 51 out of 77 in 1950.
That's
So pretty crazy.
insane. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Wow.
The next one, 1956, Maurice Stokes of the Rochester Royals, previously mentioned there, pulled down 38 rebounds in a 102-93 win over the Syracuse Nationals. I love some of these like old team names.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, this guy pulled down 38
Jesus.
rebounds. He also put up 26 points.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive.
38 rebounds. That's unheard of. Like, imagine that happening today. My God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of these performances are like overshadowed because the time frame, but I don't care. Any time frame you get 38 rebounds is pretty impressive.
Well, we're about
For
to
sure.
do some other interesting ones. This guy, a name that should be very familiar to all NBA fans. 1961, Wilt Chamberlain, Wilt the Stilt of the Philadelphia Warriors, pulled down 35 rebounds in a 116-113 win over the 31-13 at the time Boston Celtics.
Wow. That's
So
unbelievable.
yeah, that was a
Wow.
big performance. Another interesting little tidbit from that game. Both Wilt and Russell played 48 minutes, so did not sit out.
Jesus.
Russell went 20 and 14. Wilt went 44 and 35.
Oh
In
my
that
God.
game.
Unbelievable, huh? That is
Yeah, yeah.
unbelievable
So that
stats.
is
Yeah.
Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, man, those guys are some serious legends. I mean, think about that. Those kind of stats, like that, will never happen again. These stats, these are like unreal.
yeah, that really
Oh
is,
my
and
goodness.
something you guys might find a little interesting too. From the Northeast, because obviously the tragic passing of Tommy Heinsohn. He
Oh yeah.
played in this game and he scored. He had a double double, actually 13 and 10.
Oh wow. Tommy, man,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tommy
R.I.P.
Heinsohn.
R.I.P. One of the best Celtics, and if you look at his career, actually, that guy was one in every pretty much every category he's been in, like coaching, playing. It's like I think he has like 11 championships or something outrageous. He's
Yeah,
done
yeah,
he was an amazing Celtic. It sucks. We lost a lot of. I mean, this year we've lost so many legends. Kobe Bryant, Tommy Heinsohn, Casey Jones died also like a week after Tommy Heinsohn. A
yep,
lot
yep.
of unfortunate deaths.
Oh, Casey Jones was in that game also. 15 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds for Casey Jones.
Wow, they won
And
that
nine and
Celtics
nine
team.
from the
They
free
won.
throw. That game they lost by 3.
Oh wow, wow,
Yeah.
that's
But
interesting.
actually, the next one coming up is a year later. Again, Celtics versus Warriors. This time, Will Chamberlain scored 62 points and a
Jesus.
145 to 136 loss to the Boston Celtics.
Damn.
Wow, that's unreal,
Yeah.
huh?
So
Will Chamberlain, man,
again,
That's
was a
Will
freak.
insane.
Will Chamberlain
he
supposedly
is.
had sex with like over like I think I read 10,000 women. Is that true? 10,000 I read.
Holy shit.
I mean,
He claims he
I
did.
actually think I read that, and I forgot what I was watching, but they actually did the math. The math to have sex with like that many women, you need to have sex like per day, like 3 or 4 times. That's like unreal.
That's impossible, nearly, for that guy.
That guy must
Yeah,
have been
yeah. I'm sure.
every game just like plowing away in the visitors' locker rooms.
Oh yeah.
It's funny.
I'm sure his number is higher than most humans who have ever existed, but 10,000 is definitely up there.
Yeah.
Um, he was also actually a fantastic volleyball player, which I learned
Oh yeah, I
somewhat
heard about that
recently,
too.
which I thought
Yeah,
was pretty interesting.
yeah, there
I
is.
wanted to share a couple other tidbits from that game. So at the time, the Boston Celtics were 34-8, very impressive record. And Will Chamberlain again played all 48 minutes. He had 62 and 28. Um, Russell 23 and 29, also in this game. Bob Cousy had 20 points, although he went 10 of 26 from the field. So Cousy
Wow.
was hoisting up a lot of shots that game.
Jeez, Bob Cousy,
Um,
yeah. What a go.
yeah, Tommy Heinsohn went 27 and 10. Also very impressive. But yeah, the Celtics got the win despite a 62 piece from Wilt to
Wow.
Still.
That's unbelievable. Cousy shot 26% that game. 10 of 20.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. Wow. That's
So
funny.
yeah, making our way up. Our next one is we had an NBA All Star game on this day, 1964. The East defeated the West 111 to 107 in the Boston Garden.
Oh, wow.
MVP was Oscar Robertson. Coach for the East, Red Auerbach.
Wow. Wow, look at those. Those are some Celtics goats, Red Auerbach.
Yep, yep.
Oscar Robinson, what a great player he was. He was like the Westbrook before Westbrook, Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, he pretty much was.
That's
So
unbelievable.
I'll just glaze over these next couple ones to get to more recent times. It's another Wilt Chamberlain one. Um, he pulled down 42 rebounds this time again. They played the Celtics a lot this
Like,
time
what was
again.
there, like 6 teams at the time?
1966. Yeah, yes. 42 rebounds and a win over the Celtics in 66. 67, Rick Barry scored 50 points and
Wow.
a win over the Pistons. Then we have a few more All-Star games where the East defeated the West in 69 and in 75.
Wow.
Uh, and then we go up to 1984. This is a guy I've never heard of. Enos Watley of the Chicago Bulls dished out 22 assists in a loss to the New York Knicks in 1984,
Wow. 22
which
assists.
was,
Impressive.
yeah, 1 year before Jordan was drafted.
Yeah. Wow. That's
And
insane.
then we skip ahead to 2002.
Oh, wow.
A guy near and dear to many NBA fans across the globe. Kobe Bryant, 56 points in a 120-81 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. At the time, this was 2002. The Lakers were 27-8.
Wow. Those were those Shaq and Kobe
Damn.
days. Wow, that's impressive. That's always crazy to see, like, someone score that many points in, like, such a blowout game. That's rare that happens now because what happens is that they're winning by, like, 30 in the fourth quarter. They take those guys out. Early 2000s, they kept them in and let them score 70.
It's what's crazy is Kobe played. He played 34 minutes that game.
Oh, my God.
56 points, 21-34 from the field. Looks like
Wow.
Shaq, it's showing in the box score, did not play. It says player suspended. So something happened and
wow.
Shaq got suspended.
He probably went to one of his concerts and
But
did something.
yeah, Kobe Bryant was a plus 40 for the plus minus for that game.
Wow.
Paul Gasol was actually on the Grizzlies, was a minus 38. And he did finish with 25 points and 12 boards, though, for the Grizzlies.
Very good.
So the next one after that, you guys remember Damon Stoudemire?
Of course.
Portland Trailblazers, 54 points and a 112-106
Wow,
loss.
54. I don't even remember him scoring 54 points. That's a lot of points for him. My God.
He scored 54 points and a loss to the 5-30 New Orleans Hornets.
Wow. Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
What team was he on at that time? Portland.
He was on Portland. He shot 8 of 16 from 3-point range, and also Nick Van Exel in that game shot 7 of 12 from 3-point range.
What year was this again?
This was 2005. No other starters attempted a three that game.
You know what's
Those
kind of
guys
crazy?
shot 28 threes between them.
I'm looking at Damon Stoudemire's stats, and the most he ever averaged in Portland was 15.8. So that must have been like a massive season high for him to have 54. That's like a massive breakout game. My goodness. Wow.
Yeah, he on the other team, the Hornets, they had Baron Davis scored 22 points. Dan Dickau off the bench for 25.
Oh, yeah, Dan Dickau, yeah. Unbelievable.
Gonzaga boy.
Yep.
Zach Randolph was on the Trailblazers at the time, but it says did not dress. So I don't know what happened.
In the showers
there.
that game, huh?
Yeah. Left him in the showers. Didn't get his uniform on in time.
Oh, wow.
And so we have just two more. Jimmy Butler, 2016, as a member of the Chicago Bulls, scored 53 points in a win over the Philadelphia 76ers.
He was so good on the Bulls.
Oh, yeah. He was a lot of fun to watch. This was...
wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Derrick Rose did not play, so did not dress either. He must have been in the shower with, what's his name? Zach Randolph.
Zach Randolph, yeah, Zebo. That's a good shower to look at.
Yeah. But yeah, 53 points for Butler against the Sixers, who didn't field much of a team. I think this was in one of their rebuilding years.
Yeah, they had plenty of those. What they have, like 4 first-round number 1 picks in a row?
They had Jahlil Okafor actually in the starting lineup.
Oh God, what a bust he's turned out to be, huh?
Yeah. Covington scored 25 off the bench.
Oh yeah, Robert Covington.
Nerlens Noel.
Good player. Oh yeah, Nerlens Noel. Oh my God.
All right, so last one involves a guy that we talked about at length today. Can you guess who it was? 2019?
James Harden.
Yep. James Harden scored 57 points in a 112-94 win over the Memphis Grizzlies.
I think I remember that game. Yeah. See, that's what Harden can do.
That's how impressive of a player he is. So.
Yep.
Wow.
He was 17 of 33 from the field, 16 of 15 from the 3-point line.
This is what the Brooklyn Nets are getting.
Yep, 17 of 18 from the free throw line.
Yeah, that guy goes to the line at will. Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, those were this date in NBA history. It's always kind of fun to look at, some of the past box scores and things like that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And I like how we did that segment. That's awesome. The day in NBA history, those are always, fun to look at and remember. I mean, some of those things are unreal. I mean, 1960s guys dropping 55 points is unbelievable.
No, I know. It is
Yeah,
pretty
to
cool.
look back on stuff like that for sure.
But that seems to be the end of the podcast. So I appreciate you guys coming on. Eric, thank you for coming on. Dave, I appreciate you coming
Thanks for
on.
having me on, Ryan.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah,
I'll
man,
see
it was
you.
a lot of fun.
See
It
you.
was great collaborating with you guys, and um, I'm sure we'll have some more material to talk about very soon.
Very good. All right, I'll see you guys.